spoilers? Oh, lots and lots of spoilers.
Greetings, my excellent friends. Welcome to Mike's Excellent Movie Adventure. In our series, I'd forgotten how much I hate time travel. This week, we're dealing with a narrative that integrates time travel as the mechanism for resolving the central plot conflict, which, of course, addresses the most significant of temporal events, passing high school history. Yes, it's time to pay tribute to those two most triumphant chrononauts, Bill and Ted, and their respective excellent adventure. This movie has it all. Comedy, romance, philosophy, classical music, corn dogs, water slides. Truly the very essence of temporal malleability. Yes, this movie addresses the critical question, what happens when you give two colossal nincompoops access to technology that can effectively warp the time-space continuum? And how can we play that for laughs? Starring Alex Winter and some guy named Kavanaugh, Kanye, whatever. I think this was his last movie.
I think it's pronounced quinoa.
Something like that, but it's not ours. I'm Max S. Levine, Esquire, and over there is my esteemed colleague, Mike Can't Think of a Nickname Loose. Party on, dudes.
Chrononauts?
Chrononauts. They're delicious.
Made that up.
No, they were that pastry they have in Brooklyn.
We're not in Brooklyn.
We should be. Hey, yo, I'm walking here.
Why should we be in Brooklyn?
Because everyone should be.
I thought everything was sunnier in Philadelphia. Yeah, oh well.
Something like that. But, a tree grows in Brooklyn.
Oh, good. I got to go.
Just the one. But before we get to that, we have to, of course, get to last week's poll question.
Poll question.
Yes, poll question.
Poll question.
What is your favorit poll? Barber?
Done that.
Fire? Fire department? Acrobat? Cavalier?
Dungeon Master.
What prop, scene piece, or MacGuffin from a movie would you most like to own? We got some interesting answers here. Amber Stevens says Scarlett O'Hara's straw wide-brimmed hat with the green ribbon, the one she wore to the barbecue at 12 Oaks. It's beautiful, unique, versatile, and green is my favorite color. That is an awesome hat.
Yeah.
Kelly Cooper, that goddamn briefcase from Pulp Fiction. I was thinking of that one, so I can look inside and see what the hell is generating the golden glow. Note, I know this is ridiculous. Of course you do, Kelly, because you know it was a light bulb.
Well, and also we know one thing it isn't, an Oscar. Anyway.
No. From Mike's sisterly connection, Val, I've always wanted the hourglass in The Wizard of Oz. Ooh, that's good. I love the dragons in the corner. Assistant Stephen, after considering everything from the ring from Lord of the Rings to the bag of sand from Raiders of the Lost Ark in the opening scene, he settled on Big Julie's pipless dice from Guys and Dolls. That's unique. I like that.
Huh. That's, bag of sand, huh?
I should tell you, Stephen, if you get a bag and fill it with sand, you've got the prop.
Kinda. Yeah, if folks who don't remember, the hourglass made a guest appearance in a film a few weeks ago. It showed up in The Seven Faces of Dr. Lau, Lou, however one wants to say. Oh, Lou.
Steve. Dr. Steve.
Yeah.
From Dave. He wants the cone of silence. Now, before you say it, it is not just from the TV show. They use the cone of silence in Get Smart, the movie.
But it never works.
It never did. If I was still in a big firm, I would want one in a conference room so that if I get sick of a meeting, I could avoid discussing things with my coworkers. That's why he wants it, because it doesn't work.
It's actually very practical. Most other people just want them to have things, but that's very practical. He has a use for his prop.
Yep. From Benjamin Carl, he wants the owl from Clash of the Titans. Boo-bo. But I want it from before they made the movie so as to prevent the anachronism. Good planning. I like this.
I mean, everyone knows it was an R2-D2 stand-in.
Yeah.
Like, ancient Greek needed that. But thanks, Javi. It's Raph speaking. He knows who it is.
From my godson, Ned, anything from The Lord of the Rings would be nifty. But if I had to pick a specific thing as a keepsake, the oscillation overthruster from Buckaroo Banzai would be fun. Yes, it would. Apparently, someone makes and sells a vape pen in its likeness, which kind of renders it a little less exciting. I got to admit, that's kind of true.
Well, the weird thing is that is also one of those props that occasionally just shows up in things. I've never been able to catch it, but it is apparently fairly obviously used in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. And from our Great White Connection, Vince, if I could have any prop, it would be the robot from Metropolis.
Oh, Maria.
Oh, Vince, I don't want to know what you'd use it for.
Max!
Some guys made a copy of the suit from the original plans with the original materials and looked amazing. Much better than the paper mache thing I saw at the Berlin Film Museum a few years back. I wouldn't be surprised if that was better.
Yeah.
Oh, so thank you, folks. Those are all great answers, and we will be sending you your commemorative MacGuffin Bumpy Bucks as soon as we can beat them into submission and get them in the box with the air holes.
They're
so, Mike,
really rowdy. Yeah.
Yep. So, Mike, what prop would you want?
I utterly forgot to think about this particular
or
question.
Anything ever.
I mean, there's some choices I expected but didn't get. Lightsabers. I want Luke's lightsaber. I want Darth's lightsaber.
Because our readers are intelligent enough to know, our listeners are intelligent. Hey, they might have read the website. So I said they're intelligent. I didn't say anything about me. They know that it wouldn't be. It would just be the handle.
Well, yeah, but it's a prop. Important. That's the whole point. You still want the prop. That's a tough one because, I mean, yeah, you could sit there and say lightsabers or, honestly, my little geek heart would absolutely love a screen-used hero communicator or phaser from the original Star Trek show.
Okay.
I have the Bluetooth communicator, which I have to say is freaking fantastic. If you are a Star Trek fan and if you've not seen this, I don't know if they still sell them. It was about $150, which is honestly utterly worth it. It is as accurate as you're going to get in a prop.
This is the old show communicator, the flip phone?
This is TOS, as they call it, or the original series. It is as screen accurate as you're going to get, and it works. So you can actually use it as a Bluetooth-enabled addition to your phone. So if your phone rings, you get the actual beep they used in the show. You can then take out your communicator, flip the lid, it makes the actual sound it's supposed to, and you can have your phone call on the communicator.
I gotta say, the recursive irony of this is a bit much, considering one of the first flip cell phones, the StarTAC, was designed based on the Star Trek communicator, and now we've gotten back to where we can use the Star Trek communicator as a cell phone.
Yeah. You can use voice activation, so you push a button and tell it to call somebody, and it will call somebody. There's programmed in voices from the show, so you push buttons different ways, and you get different people saying things. So in essence, I kind of have what I want, but it is so sweet.
By the way, we are not getting paid for this promotion, but if whoever makes it wants to send us a couple of free ones,
yeah, we haven't had any more ticket offers since Rogue Warfare 2, or was it 3?
Rogue Warfare 3, yeah.
So Max, how about you?
I'm not sure. Most of the time, the props don't really look as cool off the set. The one I would kind of like is from Lord of the Rings, but it's not the One Ring. I'd like Gandalf's ring, Narya, the Ring of Fire, which we only see in that one shot at the Grey Havens, the one with the red stone. I think that's a really cool design. I really liked the interpretation of Narya that way. I
actually thought you were going to say his staff. I was very close. I was just like, Max is going to say Gandalf's staff.
The staff is nice, but I'd want. But I'm not going to walk around with it. I'd like something I could actually wear.
You wouldn't take an old man's prop, would you?
What do you mean your prop? This is Peter Jackson's prop.
Yeah, you never know. I think I found out recently that Elijah Wood has Sting. Like he actually.
Oh
Sting.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I know there's a whole bunch of people there were like, 15 copies of the One Ring, and all of them got stolen.
Well,
or borrowed. I think Elijah Wood has one of them, but I think Peter Jackson let him keep it.
Well, then he went and threw it in a volcano, so that's gone. Can't give him
that
anything,
was just careless.
Kid.
I mean, God. That's why he can't have nice things.
Speaking of nice things, Max, what nice question do we have for next week?
Next week, can you think of a mediocre or even bad movie that has one really great scene or really great performance that almost saves it? Doesn't have to completely save it, but that makes you go, I'll watch if you come across the movie, it's like, oh, that scene is on. I'll watch that scene, but I don't want to watch the movie.
And then you end up watching it anyway and feeling guilty all next day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. So folks can answer that in the usual ways, which
we will describe at the end.
That's right, because we have a lot to talk about when it concerns
Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted.
Discuss.
The show.
Trivia. Budget, $10 million.
Oh.
Worldwide gross, $40 million.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, this one was more of a sleeper hit. This built up a huge following over the years. But it was a success, as we know, because there was a sequel a couple of years later.
And
another one 20 years later.
I haven't seen that one yet.
I have. We can talk about that later if you like.
Yep.
First of all, let's address a certain elephant in the room. This movie, Bill and Ted, came out in 1989. Wayne and Garth first appeared on Saturday Night Live during the 1988-89 season. People have long debated which was one a ripoff of the other. I would have to say no. Yes, they're both about two slackers, but the characters are very, very different.
I saw the similarity too. The thing is I actually saw that the film came out in 88. Regardless, production started way before that.
Oh yeah, it was started I think in 86 or 87. We'll get to that.
So I think it's just one of those things because like the whole, trope of dimwit Californians.
The Valley Dude, along with the Valley Girl, was a big thing in the late 80s.
It was. And yes, I know that Wayne and Garth are supposedly from Aurora, Illinois, but, let's face it, they would have fit in California, too. At least stereotypically, no offense, Californians.
Yep. So we may come back to that, but Alex Winter claims that he gets two types of letters from teachers. Positive ones from history teachers for encouraging students to learn about history, and negative ones from English teachers for affecting the way the students speak. That's fair. For many years, Keanu Reeves lamented that his epitaph would be, "Here lies Keanu Reeves, he played Ted." Clearly, he doesn't have to worry about that anymore.
No.
Yeah. In the original script, the time machine was a 1969 Chevy van.
Yeah.
The filmmakers thought that was a little too similar to Back to the Future from 1985, so they changed it to a phone booth, totally unconcerned with the fact that Doctor Who uses a phone booth as a time machine, but didn't matter.
This is a police box. It's
a police phone booth, which is. But of course, that's foreign, so it doesn't care.
Nope.
In the film, Bill and Ted claim that they need Mr. Edward Van Halen in their band to make it better. After the film was released, Eddie Van Halen said he would have been glad to join the band if they had just asked. When Napoleon finishes his water slide presentation in the big history presentation, Ted looks up and says, "I don't think it's going to work." Napoleon is actually diagramming his most disastrous defeat, the invasion of Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. He would not be the last person to make that big mistake.
Yeah. This movie has had a big effect on the town of San Dimas, California, real place. In 2010, the city celebrated 50 years of incorporation, and the celebration slogan was, "San Dimas, 1960 to 2010, an excellent adventure." I think that's nice. Originally, the plot was going to have Bill and Ted visit and accidentally cause all of history's greatest tragedies, including the sinking of the Titanic and the crash of the Hindenburg. That would have been a really dark movie.
Well, also, how would they have gotten out of it? Oh, let's go fix it, huh?
I don't know.
Nothing bad ever happened in history, thanks to Bill and Ted.
In an interview in 2013, Alex Winter called casting George Carlin a very happy accident. They were going after very serious people first. They were trying to get like Sean Connery to be Rufus. They were also trying to get Ringo Starr, which I think could have worked. But they had the idea way after they started shooting to use George. And the whole movie was a happy accident. No one ever thought it would see the light of day.
Oh, that's funny because I actually came across something, and now I can't remember who it was. They'd actually hired somebody else, and 4 days before filming, that person backed out. And that's when they got Carlin, which that was one of my questions. How the hell did they get George Carlin?
And they offered him a paycheck. Yeah. George wasn't in a lot of movies. Not until Prince of Tides. That was a pretty major one. I think he almost got the Best Supporting Actor nomination for that.
Wasn't that a Baba Wawa film?
It was a
Barbra Streisand?
not Barbra Streisand film. Yes, not Baba Wawa.
She's not a prince.
Principal photography was completed in 1987, but the film's original financiers, the De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, went bankrupt. Oh,
yeah.
The film was in danger of just being dumped straight onto cable TV until Nelson Entertainment bought the rights in 1988 and released it in 89. And of course, by that time, their lungs were aching for air.
Wasn't it Relson? I think it was Relson.
I think it's Felson. But in the book, The Producers, Profiles in Frustration, the producer, Scott Kropf, recalled pitching the script to Dino De Laurentiis himself. According to him, quote, Dino had no idea what the film was about. He didn't understand what dudes were until someone said to him that dudes meant guys who had big Johnsons. Then he said, oh, great, I get it now.
Well, when everyone else's Ted dies, nobody cries. But when his Ted dies, everybody cries.
Most of the historical figures that Bill and Ted bring back with them died horrifically.
Oh.
Several of them were, including Socrates, Joan of Arc, Billy the Kid, and Abraham Lincoln, were either executed or assassinated. Sigmund Freud died by assisted suicide, and some people believe Napoleon's death under house arrest was because he was poisoned. The only ones who died of natural causes were Genghis Khan and Beethoven. Excuse me, Beef Oven. In the original outline of the movie, Rufus was supposed to be a 28-year-old high school sophomore who befriended Bill and Ted. There was also a character named John the Serf, whom Bill and Ted picked up in medieval England.
Well, that sounds like Spicoli.
Sure, I know that dude. Joan of Arc, a.k.a. Jane Weedland, isn't very well known as an actor. She is much better known as one of the original Go-Go's.
Oh.
Yes, she's a musician, wrote a lot of music, and she was one of the Go-Go's.
Well, I guess she went.
Yep. All of the figures that Bill and Ted pick up in history are shown on the blackboard in the opening scene with their teacher, Bernie Casey. I don't know why anyone would ever turn in a late assignment to Bernie Casey. He would scare them. Rufus never introduces himself to Bill or Ted. The future Bill and Ted introduce him to their past selves at the Circle K.
A paradox!
This is, by the way, not the only time Genghis Khan and Abraham Lincoln have appeared together. In addition to the animated show Clone High, they were, of course, in the episode of Star Trek The Original Series, The Savage Curtain.
Oh,
help me, Spock.
Help me, Kirk. Help me, Kirk.
Yep. It's important that you know that. And the Rufus's bosses, the three people in the future world, who are listed in the credits as the three most important people in the world, are played by Clarence Clemens, the saxophone player for Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
Sure.
Martha Davis, the lead singer of the Motels, and Fee Waybill, lead singer and songwriter for the Tubes.
Sure.
Yeah. There's a bunch of other stuff about, who could have played whom and various reactions, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, it's plot time, buddy, so I think you should hunker down and pucker up and get that plot a-going.
You got it, Buttercup. In late 80s San Dimas, California, two most excellent young gentlemen, Bill S. Preston Esquire, Alex Winter, and Ted Theodore Logan, Keanu Reeves, are attempting to form a most triumphant band. Sadly, they are set by many heinous problems, such as the fact that they can't play their instruments for squat.
Yeah.
And they are about to fail high school history class, which will result in Ted being sent away to military school, breaking up the band.
Oh, no.
Bogus. But just when things look bleakest, or most bogus, they receive a Deus Ex phone booth in the form of Rufus, played brilliantly by George Carlin, a dude from 700 years in the future, who comes to lend them a time-traveling phone booth. Yeah, okay, a TARDIS, with which they may collect some of history's greatest figures in order to put together a most triumphant history report. The two goofballs travel through time, learning about history, meeting new friends, and even finding romance somehow. So someone 700 years in the future, in an allegedly super advanced civilization, thought it would be a good idea to place the unimaginable power of time travel into the hands of two likable morons whose tenuous grasp of history includes that Caesar was a salad dressing dude. How does this movie not end with all time and space imploding? I don't know, but it doesn't.
The end?
The end.
The lowdown.
So, Max, we're going to ask, we're, like there's more than one of me here. Shut up. No, we aren't. Yes, we are. I'm going to ask the question I usually ask, which is, did you see this when it came out? Like, did you actually go to the theater to see it?
I did. I saw it in the theater. In fact, I think I saw it in the theater a couple of times.
When you went, he asked knowingly, did you go without anybody because you were kind of ashamed to admit you were going to go see it?
No, I think I went with somebody, although I can't remember who.
Oh, yeah, I did.
I was alone?
Nobody's going to want to go to this. No, I just went by myself. And I remember coming out of the film just sort of giggling, and it was like, that was fun.
Yeah. I mean, I went into that going, there is no one in this movie I know except for George Carlin.
Yeah.
Because Keanu Reeves, I think, had been in Parenthood, where he plays the same character effectively. It's just not played for laughs as much.
One could argue, oh, no, we won't. We'll be nice to Mr. Reeves, who apparently is like the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, apparently he is like the most beloved man in Hollywood. He's apparently an absolute sweetheart. This does not change the quality of his acting. Let's
just say he has a range. It's just very, very narrow.
But he has gotten very good at choosing the parts that fit him, that work with that range. I mean, the Mostly. John Wick movies, the Matrix, the first Matrix movie, and nothing else ever. Were
I know there weren't any, right?
Right. And there certainly isn't going to be a fourth.
Yeah, there were some misfires. I would say his appearance in Much Ado About Nothing is
oh dear,
pretty much Much Ado About Nothing.
No, he was the nothing. I'm afraid. I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves.
I saw that with my mother, and she described his performance as he looks like he has the worst smelling mustache in the world. Harrison Ford, quite honestly, doesn't have much of a range. What he does very well. And I think it's fair to say that what he does very well is better than what Keanu Reeves does very well. But you totally believe him as Ted.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely convincing. These guys, it's a real tribute to both of them that these characters are just so monumentally I don't know if it's stupid or just intellectually lazy, and yet they're so likable because there's this real childlike innocence about them.
Yeah. I would say, so you brought up the thing in the trivia, if I can throw this in here. You brought up that people were like, well, this is just like Wayne's World and stuff. The thing about Wayne's World is that those two characters, I don't know how old they were supposed to be, but the fact that they were adults and losers is a big difference between being high school age and losers.
Well, on Saturday Night Live, they were supposed to be in high school. In the movie, they're post-high school.
Okay. Because, I mean, we're not buying them as high school pretty much
No. They really aren't. And also, Wayne and Garth don't have the same kind of innocence that Bill and Ted do.
Garth does.
Well, a little bit, but...
Wayne doesn't.
Wayne really doesn't. They're also much more self-aware, and they break the fourth wall. They're literally talking to the audience. Bill and Ted are just completely clueless. The opening of this movie, I was watching the credits, is like Orion Pictures. Oh.
Yeah.
Sad.
Boy, Orion Pictures, they were a weird little outfit because they kind of came out of nowhere and had big hits. I think they did the original Terminator, and they may have done...
Didn't they do Time Bandits?
They might have. But Orion, had a couple of really big hits. They were, and again, Terminator. Going back to Terminator, and we don't know.
Yeah, we might.
Terminator
we might.
Was definitely not expected to make any money. It was did not have a big budget. I remember I actually almost walked out of it because the opening scenes of the future and the war look really cheesy. The special effects look like little models, and you don't buy stuff. And I didn't drive, so I ended up staying, which is good because the movie is actually really well done. This is back when Cameron could direct. But Orion had hits like that. They would make low-budget films and suddenly do well. It's kind of like Lionsgate. Lionsgate used to be this, third or fourth tier, Chopper films, and stuff like that. And now Lionsgate does everything from art films to, they have some of their own franchises. But at some point, they extended too far and they're gone.
Yeah. The opening premise of the movie, as we're talking about time travel and the way it works into the narrative, the opening premise is basically a paradox.
Right.
It opens with Rufus saying, it's time, we have to go help them. Bill and Ted are going to break up. The band is going to break up. The Wild Stallions, oh boy. Which
Stallyuns.
Yeah, both words spelled wrong.
With Y's. Well, it's metal.
Yeah. They're going to break up, so he has to go back and help them. However, the existence of their society is predicated on Wild Stallions and their music uniting the world and the cosmos and aligning the planets and letting them communicate with household pets and stuff. So how does that work? It's got to be a causality loop, which brings up, by the way, the nature of time travel in this movie.
Do we want to get to that yet?
No, we'll get there later.
Okay. And I'm going to leave the response to your query here as well till we get to time travel later, because the thing that I did note, the only thing I'll add is the thing I did notice that they weren't all like, oh my God, we have to go save Bill and Ted. They were like, oh, hey, it's a quarter to saving Bill and Ted. Yeah. You should go do that thing. But actually, before we even I want to go back to the saving grace of Nelson Entertainment, because my first note was Nelson Entertainment, a name that reeks of quality.
Yeah, by the way, that is the same Nelson as in the band.
Is it really?
Yeah, they were connected. It was the same family.
Because it looks like the thing gives you the impression that it's supposed to be Lord Admiral Nelson, and it has anything to do with that.
Yeah, no, it's Gunnar and what's his name?
Ricky Nelson's kids.
Yeah.
Yay. So we have this thing they're going to go, and that now we know who Bill and Ted are. And then we cut to San Dimas High School, and we cut to the history class.
And we see that they have done nothing. They don't know anything. I got to say, though, when the introduction of Missy still cracks. That just cracks
Shut
me
up,
up.
Ted.
Every time. You remember, Missy is Bill's new stepmom, and she is literally 4 years older than he is. Or 3 years older. He goes, you remember when we were freshmen and she was a senior?
Shut up, Ted. Yeah.
Remember when I asked her to the prom?
Shut up, Ted. Yeah.
It's a very weird plot point it's very noticeable, but nothing's made of it. Nothing's done with it. Or how incredibly creepy Bill's dad is, who has married basically one of his son's classmates.
And then proceeds to have sex with her in his son's bedroom while shoving his son out the door.
This also becomes a running gag in the sequel, where Missy divorces Bill's dad and marries Ted's, and then divorces him and marries the villain. But anyway,
yeah,
it's very odd.
I do like the fact that she's always like, whenever he says, Missy, sorry, Mom, she gets uptight if she doesn't call her Mom.
Yep.
Yeah, there was some definite sexism going on. There's some misogyny, because the impression is that she just sleeps with everybody, which, okay.
Well, the way the women in this movie are kind of a problem, like the princesses.
Yeah.
Why Bill and Ted have a romantic connection with these two medieval princesses? Why?
No reason.
Why?
They wave at them.
They're there as prizes, basically. They're just...
Yeah. Oh, don't forget Miss of Arc, though.
Oh, yep, Miss of Arc. Can we call you Joan? She's actually, considering she has no lines in English, is a lot of fun.
Yeah, well...
I like they're in jail and she's praying, and Bill and Ted appear to rescue her, and she just looks up, crosses herself, and says, Merci Dieu, thank you, God. Like, oh, good, thank you, you answered. Not surprised. Oh, God has sent me Bill and Ted to get me out. Sure he did.
Yeah. One thing I want to get in here real quick. If you somehow haven't seen Bill and Ted, or don't know anything about Bill and Ted, you really can't take this movie seriously at all.
It's not. You know that from the beginning. There's no way to take it seriously.
Well, yeah, but you have to take it less and less seriously as the movie goes on.
Heavens,
because
initially the big future guys, they use the greeting. Rivas is leaving and says, "Be excellent to each other," and to which Clarence Clemens, in that awesome voice of his, responds, "Party on, dude." Absolutely deadpan.
But that's how it starts.
Yep.
You get Bill and Ted, and here's the first thing you have to swallow with the giant salt tablet is they're going to flunk school if they don't pass history.
Yeah,
this implies that somehow they have passed the rest of their classes. And seeing Bill and Ted...
Hang on. Nope, I got to disagree. I got to point out, I don't think you're right there.
Oh?
Bernie, their teacher never says they're going to be expelled or they're going to... He says, I'm going to have to flunk you. They will fail history. The only one who has a really drastic consequence is Ted, because his father has said, if you fail history, you're going to military school.
Which sounds like if you fail history...
But he does. No one says that. No one at any point says that he's about to flunk out of school. It's just this one course. The implication is they don't do well at all, because why would they?
That's what I'm saying.
But we don't know that. We don't know they failed anything else.
No, that's what I'm saying. My point is somehow they haven't failed everything else, and we're supposed to believe that. No. I mean, they're very nice people, and maybe eventually they'll show some actual aptitude for music. Don't think so. Yes, I have seen the sequel. But let's face it, these guys don't do anything. They hang out and pretend to be in a rock band, which they've probably been doing since they were 10.
Yeah. And they really do play their instruments exactly the way people who thought you could learn how to play a guitar by watching MTV would play them.
Yeah.
Jump around, wildly wave your arms, and grab the fretboard. And that's about it.
Now, you forgot screaming your band name.
Oh, yeah, screaming your band name. That important.
Helps.
Oh, yeah.
So that's your first, okay, I believe that they are not failing all the rest of their classes. Somehow it's just history. Okay, I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Then we have to deal with the time travel, and it's like, well, we knew it was a time travel film, and anytime there's time travel involved, no matter what form it takes, and we'll see some interesting forms later on, you just have to go, okay, time travel. Whether it's a weird, put-it-together, made-up box, like there could be a homemade computer from last week's film, Primer, or Tenet, where it apparently is some sort of weird round room, I guess, thing, or a DeLorean or whatever, you have to just go, okay, we're going to deal with time. Okay, it's a phone booth. Fine. Yeah. It's a phone booth.
And then the thing I like is they make it very clear that the science has nothing to do with it, because at one point, Bill asks Rufus, how does it work? And Rufus responds, modern technology, William. That's it. Technology. It's like, all right, good. You have just told us you're not even going to try. We shouldn't try to figure it out. This is actually narratively really nice. It takes a lot of the pressure off. It's not like, oh, God, should I be trying to figure out how this works? No, we just know that if the antenna on the top of the phone booth gets damaged, it screws up, but you can fix it with chewing gum.
Yes, the antenna, which is not at all the interior splines of an umbrella.
No, certainly not. Why would you think that?
Yeah. Okay, so then we get to that. And now what are they going to do? They have a history report, which is the whole point of the report is to say how you think somebody from history would see San Dimas
Modern
today.
Day San Dimas, yeah.
So, of course, their whole idea is, well, the best way to find out is to go get them and bring them to San Dimas.
Which, again, feeds into the whole laziness thing. It's like, we're not going to actually try to write something. We're not going to try to speculate. We're actually going to find these people and just ask them.
Yeah. Which,
I mean, it's an interesting idea, but...
we're skipping to the head, but it actually works out pretty well.
It works out very well. But what I don't... this is the part I don't understand. I guess I understand from a narrative point, but at one point, Rufus says, here you go, take the phone booth, you're going to go into the past. And they ask him, why can't you come with us? And he doesn't really answer that. And I would like to know why he can't go with them. He's already interfered in the timeline. Why does he think it's safer to leave these two clodpoles alone with something that can violate the laws of time and space?
Well, and here's the other thing. He shouldn't worry so much about playing with the time stream because they're about to. And this... Bill and Ted is a delightful film. You really can't think about it much at all because the first thing they do is they go back to the wild, wacky West. And who do they pick up but Billy the Kid?
I want to know, how do they know him? They don't know who Napoleon is. They don't know who Socrates is, but they know...
Excuse me, they did know who Napoleon is. He was the short, dead dude.
Yes, and they thought Joan of Arc was Noah's wife. Yeah, but they know who Billy the Kid is. Sure.
So they go back and they get to the Wild West and they walk into a bar, a saloon, if you will, and nobody is paying them any attention, which, okay, fine, whatever. And then Billy the Kid comes in and basically tries to get them to be part of a crooked poker game, which, if he had taken 10 seconds, would have realized was an incredibly bad idea.
Yeah.
Dude, 3 aces! And then they take Billy the Kid, as they're being chased by the entire town. They take Billy the Kid out of the timeline and they put him in the phone booth. Now, knowing anything about Billy the Kid, as you have just told us, this tells us that later on they take him back only so he can be executed.
I was thinking that. It's like they disappear in front of the entire town. How is it that when they bring him back, he's not immediately burned as a witch?
Yeah. And again, can't think about this film at all, but why doesn't at some point he say, "Hey, so what happens to me?" And it's like,
you know that.
I mean, to be fair, those guys could be like,
they wouldn't know. How would they know? Maybe they'd say, "Do you know a dude named Pat Garrett? Stay away from him."
And then from there, they go to ancient Greece.
Yes,
and somehow that's fine.
That is, they bring up Socrates.
Actually, I like that Socrates, and I'm going to call him Socrates because in this film he's Socrates.
He is.
Socrates. That Socrates and Billy the Kid seem to end up becoming friends.
Yeah, and Billy, and they point this out, Billy is remarkably calm about time travel. As they say, you're handling it with the greatest of ease. We don't know why. He never explains. Yeah. He's just he's the most chill of all of them, and he's picking up the way they speak, and he doesn't seem to be bothered at all. Then they go to medieval England for no reason. I mean, that actually is one of the few times that one of the things about this movie is the pacing is really good. This is one of the times it drags.
Well, they also don't have a specific goal. They even say, though, who should we get? Oh, someone important.
Let's get that
I bet they
guy.
live in that castle.
And that's where they meet these two princesses, whose names, by the way, we don't learn until the second movie.
Right.
It's Elizabeth and Joanna, if you care. And admittedly, you get a couple of really funny scenes, like when they're playing in the armor, which I want to know, how do these two Nimrods figure out how to put on full Maximilian tournament plate armor in 20 seconds? That stuff is really tricky to put on, and you usually need another guy helping you.
Well, if you're going to be thinking about it, then how did Ted fall out of it?
Yeah, that's the other thing. How does he fall out of his armor?
But I think that this whole scene, which really just ends up with them meeting the princesses.
Yeah, that's it.
Because you have to have romance, because Hollywood doesn't understand not having romance in a film. And then running away from the king and his party trying to kill them. The entire actual point of that scene is so that Bill can say, "You killed Ted, you medieval dickweed."
Which is a brilliant. There are some hilarious lines in this. I mean, the one everyone always quotes: "Strange things are afoot at the Circle K," and yes, you killed Ted, you medieval dickweed. It's genius. There is a joke in there that really hasn't aged well. When Bill is delighted to find out that Ted hasn't died, and they hug, and then they immediately break off and in unison say, "Fag."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, ooh, okay, cringe. There's one other we'll get to later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awkward. But again, it's also completely believable for the era.
Yeah. It's actually, I'm going to take this into a broad, vaguely related point. It's actually a very sad indication of toxic masculinity. Because basically, society says two guys can't love each other unless they're gay, and that gay is bad. And so these two guys, let's face it, Bill and Ted love each other.
Of course they do.
They've been together forever.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And they're both straight, and that's fine. But as soon as you approach even a hint of that, everything gets bad. And it's just, I think it's really sad that two guys can't just be friends and love each other as friends, because that somehow weakens their masculinity or some weird crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where that joke comes from, and that's my little side trip. So they leave medieval times.
Yeah, we actually skipped one. As a demonstration, they end up during the Napoleonic Wars, and by accident, they bring Napoleon back with them.
I forget that.
And Napoleon, I gotta say, they're lengthy scenes, but he is hilarious.
Yeah.
The stuff they fob him off on Ted's little brother, Deacon, who is the most chill teenager I've ever seen. And he just like takes him out to get ice cream and
then ditches him tries to ditch him at the bowling
alley.
alley.
I love how could you ditch one of history's greatest figures? He was a dick. It's like, you know what? That's a pretty good sum up of Napoleon.
Yeah, probably.
And there is that sequence where Napoleon discovers the Waterloo water park. First of all, there is no water park called Waterloo in San Dimas. There is a real water park in San Dimas. It's a big one.
That's
it may even
fine.
have been the same one. Now, this scene makes no sense. It doesn't belong in the movie. It stops the plot, but it's adorable. It's so cute. Because Napoleon going around in his 19th century underwear,
which is see-through and it's wet, I'm just pointing out.
discovers the joys of a water slide, and he gets so into it. It's so cute. He's just like a big kid, and he doesn't want to stop. He just goes on, and he loves it, and he's so happy. This does nothing for the plot.
Well, he does adopt the philosophy of water slides to act as his attack matrix for going after Russia.
You could have done that in 30 seconds, but they did this. This is like a 5-minute scene, and it's worth it. It works just because of the sheer joy in it. All I can say is the actor who plays him must have had a ball because he just kept getting to go on the water slide over and over again.
Well, I love how they don't even explain where he went.
Yeah.
Right? So they ditch him at the bowling alley, and then the next thing, he's outside, and he says something to them in French. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing we know, Bill and Ted are back in quote-unquote present time, and they're like, oh, where'd Napoleon go? And so somehow during the night, Napoleon hasn't gotten arrested, hasn't gotten hit by a car. He ends up at a water park because why not? So again,
I was kind of surprised.
Don't think.
Napoleon's walking around with a saber, and the bowling alley manager throws him out. Why didn't he just skewer him? I mean, the guy's a general. He thinks he can kill anybody. But so the Bill and Ted then do this sort of quick montage of grabbing, and this I think worked well because we had a sort of couple of involved sequences where they get Socrates and they get Billy the Kid, and then they sort of just start grabbing people at random. Although I still want to know how they would know what Sigmund Freud looks like on the street. How would they have unless there's a picture of him in the textbook they're using?
There might have been. I mean, he does look pretty much, white beard, glasses, the way that Sigmund Freud look.
And then they go back to 13th century Mongolia and grab Genghis Khan, who is played by the mighty Al Leong, who, if you have ever seen any movie made in America with a martial artist, he's in it. Because he's in everything.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Big Trouble in Little China, Die Hard. You know this guy. The guy actually was like a world champion of soft-style karate.
Oh, he's still making movies.
Yeah. I'm not sure what soft-style karate is, and I only know to pronounce it karate because of Dave, our legal and karate expert.
Ooh.
Yeah, Dave, maybe you can tell us, is there such a thing as soft-style karate? It doesn't sound right.
Maybe it doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Or hit each other with pillows. Yeah, and they get him, and they grab Joan of Arc, and Ted, when they appear before her, Ted does the pose exactly like The Birth of Man from Michelangelo. We're just reaching out one finger to her. And then they grab Abraham Lincoln.
Because why not?
And Beethoven. And again,
Beethoven.
Another scene with Missy I just love is when they reappear at Bill's house and they try to introduce all of them. And they're trying to make up names. And Dennis Frood, Socrates Johnson, Maxine of Arc. And then they just run out at Abraham Lincoln. And Missy doesn't bat an eye.
No, she doesn't. And then, of course, the unspeakable happens that they go to the mall to introduce them, to finally get to their paper.
Yeah, to actually get to the topic. They want them to see modern-day San Dimas, and they let them loose in a mall, which proves to be, what a shock, a mistake.
Yeah, because they all actually enjoy themselves far too much.
Yep.
I can't tell if my favorite is Joan of Arc taking over the aerobics class or Genghis Khan taking the baseball bat and the aluminum baseball bat and thinking, oh, this is even better than my club.
And then putting on hockey gear and a football helmet. It's like, this is the greatest armor I've ever seen. I like Beethoven in the music store playing the electric keyboards and drawing this huge crowd, except my question is, by this point, the year that they're given, he's almost completely deaf. How does he know what the stuff sounds like?
What?
Yeah. And yet you don't care. It's still very cool. And it's also just goofy watching Socrates, Billy the Kid, and Sigmund Freud hitting on mall chicks.
And creepy. Thankfully, they know enough to go. There's one of the girls that's like, oh, look at his sandals. It's like, why are you looking Socrates' feet? That's nasty.
And they, of course, they get arrested. Everybody except Napoleon gets taken to jail. And at this point, and here we get more into the time.
Here we go.
Bill and Ted actually begin to realize the practical applications of time travel.
Unlike almost everybody else in a time travel movie ever.
Yes, they start, how do we get them out? He goes, well, wait a minute. What if after the report we use the time machine to go back, get my dad's keys, and they start figuring out we can set up all this stuff by going back in time after the report. Now this I do have to talk about. This brings in a very odd rule that Rufus sets for them, which doesn't fit the internal logic of the movie.
No, it does not.
You know right where I'm going. At the beginning, Rufus points at Ted's watch and says, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, that clock, the clock in San Dimas, is always running. So it doesn't matter where they go in time, they have 10 hours relative to them to get the report done.
Yeah.
Why?
No
Why?
idea.
This doesn't make any sense at all. They can literally go anywhere in time and return at any other point. And I know this because in the second movie, at the very end, they disappear off stage in the time machine, reappear a second later. I mean, almost instantaneously, but they've been gone for 18 months.
Right, to learn to play guitar.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. This is not the only movie to have this problem. There's another movie we may do that is seriously leaning on this quote-unquote problem as a major source of conflict. And that's the only reason that this 10-hour thing is there, is because otherwise the only conflict is them not passing their history test. Mm-hmm. But if they had all the time in the world, then it doesn't matter as much. But they have to get back, we have to figure this thing out.
What's the other movie?
It makes no sense.
What's the other movie where this happens?
I don't want to say just in case we do it.
Okay. But I do have one possible explanation. Rufus isn't telling them the truth. Rufus may want... I think this might be... I mean, this again is just speculation, but it's kind of a life lesson. It's a lesson in discipline and being able to hit a deadline. It may be... because obviously it's not true, because not only do they then rescue the historical figures, they obviously spend a fair amount of time rehearsing the presentation, because there's no way they do this incredibly elaborate presentation off the cuff. It's very clear that they've taken time to set it up.
Well, I'm going to go under Reddit right now and look under fan canon for Bill and Ted's Excellent Example. Yeah. Again, can't take this seriously.
Yeah.
That whole thing, the clock is ticking thing bothered me too.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's about the only thing that bothers me about this movie, which makes no sense in and of itself. There is no ticking clock. If you have access to time, you have access to time.
You have literally all the time you want. Yeah.
The only other thing I could say is it would actually have worked much better is that if they had said, okay, here's the deal. You only get 10 trips. That's it. And
that
then the machine stops working.
Yeah.
But,
the only other thing I figure is this would also limit the damage they might do. It's like, okay, you've got to use this in a very limited time. You can't just go all over the place doing whatever you want. Which interestingly, they never... And again, this is one of the reasons the characters are so likable. They never think, hey, we could use this to get rich, or we could use this to, get exam answers, to cheat on our school stuff. We could use this to deal with our enemies, if they have any. Well, I kind of wish they had used it to make it so that Ted's dad fell into something heavy, but because Ted's dad is a jerk. But they don't. They don't in any. The only thing they want to do is finish the report. Technically that's selfish, but obviously it isn't. It's obviously they need to for the future. This also, as we're getting toward the end, I want to bring up the nature of time travel in this movie, the rules of time travel.
Well, before you get to that, I would like to get to this.
Okay.
I would like to get to the nature of time travel. Could we, we have our talking point questions, and we did put that off, and I do want to talk about it, but go ahead.
No, let's have... time travel here, as far as I can tell, the past is immutable. Because at no point do they go back and alter something that had already happened. This is also the only explanation why they can show all these historical figures the future, get them, completely corrupt their view of time, a view of the future, and then they just put them all back where they came from, and nothing happens. There's no change to the timeline. The world is exactly the same, and the only way that's possible is if in their universe you cannot change the past.
The other thing, too, is that for this to make any sense at all, you have to be Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you have any more thought processes above that, it falls apart.
But there's even a very small thing that proves this. When Bill and Ted meet each other, the past selves and the future selves meet up, the future Ted says, "Oh, Ted, don't forget to wind your watch." Because he's like, "Oh, I forgot to wind my watch, but now I'll remind him, therefore changing the past." But Ted forgets anyway. He doesn't wind his watch. So even knowledge of the future doesn't help.
Well, even when they first show up the second time, if that makes sense, at the Circle K, they show no evidence of remembering having spoken to themselves. Mm-hmm. At the very end, they're like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But they're like, what are we going to say to each other? And it's like, well, you just saw what you were going to say to each other. So how do you not know? But yes, I see your point about the fact that time is immutable, which, when we started this series, we brought up the idea that generally with time travel stories, you get one or the other.
Yeah.
Either time is not fixed at all, which is a huge, huge mess, or everything is fate and it's already written.
Mm-hmm. And you can't change what's happened.
And that's not fun.
And also, but this move, because that seems like the least interesting version of time travel, this one actually shows a practical use for it. It's like you
pass history.
But to go back and find historical figures, get their insights, and know that you can return them to their own time and it won't change anything.
Well, except obviously it would, because now all of these people have seen things in the future. Yes. Are you trying to tell me that somewhere, somehow, Abraham Lincoln didn't see a $5 bill?
No, of course. Or someone saying, someone must have made some joke about John Wilkes Booth, or, hey, stay away from Ford's Theater. The only other option is when they went back, it formed a dozen new timelines. Every time, they all branched off.
Well, that's the one where he becomes a zombie killer, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's when he becomes a vampire hunter, and Billy the Kid probably invents the machine gun. Or
I think he goes after Cthulhu.
Yeah, that's it. And Joan of Arc becomes a vampire hunter also.
Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, can't just again. If you're about the mind level of Bill and Ted, or perhaps if you've inhaled or imbibed a certain substance before seeing this film, then this will make sense. Otherwise, it doesn't. I do want to get to our little time travel questions if we can before we finish up. So, and this one is actually probably not. I think the answer is not going to be what people expect. But is this a good use of time travel?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's the definition of it in the idea of the fixed realm, like I just said. It's a very good use. It's information. It's learning.
Well, I would even put aside the grabbing people from history and bringing them to the present as being a good idea. Bill and Ted sit there and they formulate what is the perfect outcome of the situation we're in now. Okay, what needs to happen for that to come about? And they do it. Yeah. We know they do it because we see them succeed. I have never seen anybody else in it. And I remember when I saw this film, I was like, wow, that's really smart. I just sit there and go, oh, if only I had the key to this thing. Oh, well, once I'm through all this, of course, obviously, if you die, then maybe if the key's not there, you should take that as a sign and get the hell out of there. But I have never seen anybody else plot or think ahead that way with access to a time machine.
It's very clever.
I'll give that too.
Yep.
Did time travel make for a cohesive plot?
Well, yes, it's the essence of the plot. And it actually, let's face it, compared to Primer or Tenet, this is pretty easy to follow, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I think it needs to be.
Yeah.
Does time travel make sense in this story?
It doesn't have to. And it's reasonably, except for the time limit, it's pretty internally consistent. And again, I still think that was Rufus messing with them.
Yeah. Then this last one, though, is the idea of paradox addressed?
No, they ignore because there is as we said, the whole thing is based on a paradox.
Right.
Well,
and when you brought that up, my thought was, it is a paradox and it isn't, because just because you know what needs to happen to get a certain result doesn't mean that there is a possibility that it doesn't happen, right? So in their history, they know that there's going to be somebody named Rufus and there's going to be somebody named A, B, and C, because we never do know what their names are. And they are going to decree that somebody goes back and helps these people in time. So there might even have been an entire group of the government of the future. Sorry, you have to do that.
Yep.
That is just dedicated to inventing the time machine that they know will eventually happen.
It's possible. Again, it could just be a causality loop.
Right. But they meet themselves, which is usually considered a bad idea. And of course, of all of the characters who ever tried time traveled, the ones who would probably be least upset at meeting themselves are Bill and Ted.
Yep. I do like.
What are we doing there, dude? I don't know. We should ask us.
There's actually whoever, I think it's Ted, asks this at one point. Bill is saying, should we believe them because they're giving them advice, and Ted says, why would we lie to ourselves?
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of an interesting question.
Well, I mean, you could think of reasons, but they couldn't.
Yeah.
It's sure. I'm just going to go with sure. But I just have to wonder, because usually with time travel, especially stuff like that, they sort of put forth the idea that being dim is actually a benefit for time travel and all of its paradoxes
and
weirdnesses.
Yeah.
It's like, because you get to ignore all the things that you don't realize are incredibly dangerous because you don't even see them as dangerous. So, hey, what's that big brown thing coming towards me? Maybe it'll want to be friends. Okay. So, we're at that point. We should... Because, we said we liked it then, but that was 1989.
Yep.
Do we like it now?
The Roundup.
So, Max.
Yeah.
You saw it when it came out?
I
saw it
did.
when it came out. So, you liked it then, Max. It's been a long time, and now you're looking at it with the more sobered, more considered, the wiser outlook of an adult.
Death! What?
That's a cat, Grandpa.
Oh, right.
What do you think of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
I think it holds up very well. I think it is most triumphant.
Yeah.
It still makes me laugh. I still like the characters. I think it's still really well paced. I got to say, the final presentation at the end, I love. I think it is so fun. It is. Where Sigmund Freud is psychoanalyzing Ted on stage, and Joan of Arc is sparring with Bill. And it's just so much, although I got to say one part really didn't age well either, and that's Billy the Kid shooting off a gun in a high school auditorium.
Yeah.
That's kind of awkward. I remember worrying about that in the first time I saw it, because he shoots an overhead light. I'm going, he just broke all the glass. It's right over the kids. What is he thinking?
Actually, it was a spotlight, so it was overstaged, so he just hurt himself.
Great. Yeah, there's a stage full of people and broken glass pelting down on them.
No, it's on the stage.
Yeah, and
it's fine.
I still have a bit of a problem with the princesses, because it just raises so many questions. We don't even know their names. It's like, hi, I am taking you away from your home. You're never going to see your family or your time. Which, admittedly, if you're a woman in medieval England and you're told, hi, I want to take you to a place where you won't just have to die in childbirth, you can marry whoever you want, and we invented hygiene. Then I can understand, if it was guys, I don't know, because, why would I want to stay? We run everything. If it was two women going, really? I can actually have a say in my life. I'm not somebody else's property. I completely understand why they would want to go, but they don't touch that. They don't touch the fact they don't have birth certificates or social security numbers. Where did they get the credit cards?
That's the 80s. That stuff was a lot easier. Then it involved paper.
Yeah. But again... And I actually love the fact that they still suck as a band at the end. And Rufus looks at the camera going, they do get better. What about
Apparently.
you? You saw it when it came out. How's it hold up for you?
I did. I was delighted when it came out, and I was like giggling to myself, as I said, when I came out of the theater. I didn't know anybody else I thought would want to see it. It's like when I went to see Ace Ventura, I had to trick one of our friends into seeing it, and I didn't tell her until we were in the theater. It was like, yeah, so this film was blackballed by all the critics. But of course, that ended up being a lot of fun. I love Ace Ventura. I think it does suffer a little bit from pacing. I think it's actually a little slower than today's films. I'm not saying that it was slow for the time, but people want things faster now. And there's a few periods where it's a little slow, and mostly in the beginning. It is very 80s. It couldn't be more 80s
It's
if it
extremely
tried.
80s.
But there are some great lines. I love the part where Sigmund Freud's been arrested, and there's Ted's father saying, "Why do you say you're Sigmund Freud? Why do you say I'm not? Stop analyzing me. Tell me about your mother."
Yep.
There are some really fun moments. The time travel in this film, it is one of those cases where if you tell a story either well enough, not in this case, or entertainingly enough, that's where this goes, you can just sort of ignore the fact that there is so many problems with it.
Yeah, this is not a movie where you're supposed to pay attention to the science or the...
No.
It hangs together. It's reasonably internally consistent. That's all you need for a movie like this.
The main characters are fun.
Yeah.
The two women characters, sadly, really have no bearing on the plot at all.
Nope,
None. You could take them out, take off their two parts, don't show them at the end, and the movie would be exactly the same.
Yeah.
They're literally just, you can tell they were thrown in because somebody in a suit said there has to be a love interest. And, kudos to them for basically saying, okay, here they are, and then just not, making the plot all about that, because that's what unfortunately often happens. And I'm not saying that all films with guys shouldn't have love interest in them, or all films shouldn't have them, but they should be there if it merits it, and this story does not need that.
You don't need a forced romantic interest, and I think
the clock ticking part drove me insane.
That's annoying.
Because it makes absolutely no sense.
None.
There is literally no impact on the timeline from having pulled all of these people out of it. We assume they go back, because if they didn't, then that would have caused whatever.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it's like Socrates goes, wait, they're going to do what to me? Or Lincoln's like, they're going to shoot me in the head? Really?
Maybe Genghis Khan would not have gone as far as he had if he didn't have an aluminum bat.
That may be it.
Yeah. The time travel is done for laughs, mostly. There's never really a moment where you actually think the characters are in danger. Certainly not. The closest we come is, oh no, the umbrella broke, now I have to stick gum to it.
Yeah.
And that's like 30 seconds of quote-unquote plot. So as far as the time travel aspect, I think that this does not help prove that time travel can make sense in a movie. Quite the contrary, but it's still a lot of fun. The characters are fun. They made a new sequel last year, which I haven't seen it, which apparently is fun. So sure, if you've not seen Bill and Ted somehow,
you
have some scotch, have a little weed. I think you'll probably enjoy it more, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's not to be taken seriously, but...
the sequel is fun too, yep.
Yeah, the second one...
Don't
overlook reaping. Reaping burns a lot of calories. Don't overlook my butt. Reaping burns a lot of calories.
Yep.
But Max, if you would do us a favor, people are dying to know how they can answer the poll question, which they'd like to be reminded of, and how to do so.
Mm-hmm. Well, the poll question for next week is, can you think of a mediocre or even a bad movie that has one really great scene or really great performance that saves it, or at least almost saves it? Let us know. And you can let us know either by going to our website, maxmikemovies.com, and leaving a comment, or sending us an email at us@maxmikemovies.com. You can leave us something on Facebook, where Mike will be posting the question. You can follow us on Twitter, all of these at maxmikemovies. You can send us a carrier pigeon. You can set up a temporal loop that will somehow make the answer appear yesterday.
Stop the pigeon! Stop the pigeon now!
Nab him, grab him, jab him, stab him. And
stop that pigeon now.
Yes, but that is what... So what movie are we going to see in the future?
Yeah, that's what this is all about.
Yep.
So we've had our fun.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to go back to taking time travel a little bit more seriously, because... most of the time, that's what Hollywood does. Bill and Ted was a nice little flight of adventure. But next week, I would like to potentially, I have to check this out because I don't remember. I want to aim more towards Oscar territory. I want to go to something that has more highly considered performances.
Sure. Nuanced.
A plot. I'm sorry?
Nuanced, yeah.
Yeah, nuanced performances. A plot that has a little bit more science in it, maybe. Like sort of like Primer, maybe not that far.
A little more highbrow, sure.
Yeah, and I honestly can't keep this up. Next week, we're going to watch Hot Tub Time Machine, because Nothing
Sure.
says science more than hot tub, time machine. So
Yep.
join us and get clean together in time.
Yep.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.